Welcome all that are able to join us here today for our St. Patrick's Day edition of our Entrepreneurship Council, and those watching the recording afterwards. We're very happy to have Evelyn Warr-Cummings here. She's the Executive Director for the Marion City / County Regional Planning Office, and just has an insane wealth of knowledge for anyone looking to do zoning or way beyond even planning in general, to just basic knowledge of business. She's a fantastic resource for us that we kind of rely on all the time, and very happy to have her here on our Entrepreneurship Council meeting to talk to us today, sort of about zoning and code compliance and some recent trends in ESID, DORA, housing, and solar on businesses versus utility scale. So with that, I think we'll just hand it over right to Evelyn.
Sure. Hi, thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate that the Chamber has, groups for the entrepreneurship. We at Regional Planning, we're not only the land use office, but we're also the economic development office. And so I like to think that we go from kind of the individual entrepreneur all the way up to the big industry, because our community requires all levels, all spectrums of business. So thank you all for attending. I'm going to share my screen. I'm first going to kind of give you a summary of what regional planning is, because to many people, we're a variety of different things. They don't even know we do wear the other hat, sometimes, so they may not know what resources they can come to for us. And then I'll kind of explain some of the projects that are popular in discussions lately. So, get the right one. There we go. Hope I get my thing. Okay, first of all, regional planning, and our little motto is serving Marion City, County, and you. We are a city and county entity, so we're one of the few that are kind of both. We're also township and villages, because we have actually a membership, maybe similar to the chamber, but ours are the political developments that are subdivisions. And so our staff is relatively small. There's just 2 full-time members right now. Myself, I've been here for 31 years. Rich Fender, he just started about 6 months ago, although he has a similar kind of background as I do. So he's worked for 20 years in a variety of other locations. So that's handy. Ken Langeza, he's been here for, 45 years, and had previously been the director and retired. So he's kind of part-time, 2 days a week, specializing on economic development, things like the tax abatements particularly. But he has a wealth of institutional knowledge too. Lenora Mays is our office manager. She has a skill in that she's bilingual in terms of city and county government, which when you deal with policy and finances, each side of the street has a different protocol, and she has worked in both the city and the county. And so again, that the learning curve for her was very high. She really knew it all. So that's very helpful to us. Our membership, people think it's unwieldy because it's 35 people. We actually, we get along with everybody really well. And I think it's because we have a wide variety. Well, it's 35 members. Not all of them are, elected officials. So we have representatives from the city, the county, the 15 townships, and 7 villages. So specifically, some of the elected officials like the city mayor and the 3 county commissioners, but there are 3 basically city employees or like city planning or different members of city entities. I'm sorry. Okay. The county, all 3 commissioners. 4 township trustees are represented, kind of voted on by their Township Trustee Association, because we do have 15 townships. And each of the 7 villages, mostly the mayors, or unless they appoint somebody else. But then we have a variety of other industries, like industry, the minority community, public utilities, construction, transportation, labor, agriculture, real estate, education, and then we like to have an attorney member, because a lot of things we have are major subdivisions or have legal repercussions. So we like to at least have one on our side to know if somebody's, blowing smoke or, fabricating things and trying to pull one over on us. They do not act as our attorney, but again, it just helps balance when we have applicants that we have another, they often bring their attorney, so we like to have one in our on our team. Primarily, we do land development regulations. And so as Matt said, a lot of times it might come down when you're locating your business, where am I going to put it? What's it? Some of the things you need to know is what's it zoned, which jurisdiction is it in, because we do not have countywide zoning. We have, the city has its own zoning code and the townships each have their own zoning, and some of the villages have zoning. We have countywide subdivision regulations, but a few of the few of the villages even have their own subdivision regulations. So by subdivisions, we might mean a minor land division, just like a lot split. It might be a whole residential neighborhood. It might be a whole mall or industrial park, so all scale of businesses and developments. We, under Ohio law, planning commissions are the reviewing agency for those sorts of subdivisions, major and minor. We assist the city and the townships in their zoning. We help them write it a lot of the time, as well as administer it. They each have their own zoning inspector, so we can tell you which jurisdiction you're in and who you need to speak to, and if they have a site plan review, or how many parking spaces you might need to have for your business or your sign, things like that. The city of Marion has an overlay district in its downtown, and that's a design review district. So it's not a real strict historical district, but it is a design district, which means that they would like materials and scale of signage and things that are complementary to the kind of the architectural integrity of the downtown. We do the economic development, and that might be things like the tax abatement. It may be, a lot of times that's reserved for big industry, but we do even have it in the residential areas called a CRA, Community Reinvestment Area. And that's if you're going to build a new house in an area that's designated as a CRA, you may get a 100% tax abatement on for 10 years on the improved value, or even if you're going to do rehabilitation over $10,000 worth, you might get 5 years abatement on the improved value. So again, we try to incentivize with different forms of economic development tools, and I'll kind of get into those a little bit more as I go along. We interact with a lot of agencies and the nonprofits, because a lot of what we do, yes, it sounds very, boring and regulatory, zoning and subdivisions, and we handle grants as well. But I kind of like to think that we're at the center of the circle, and there may be a spoke with each, spoke goes in a different direction. It might be housing, it might be neighborhood development, it might be transportation. And each of those spokes take us to a different partner, or even businesses. We do have a lot of businesses that have been very helpful, even in creating the policy for some of the things we're trying to do to assist business. So some of those quality of life issues are active transportation. So that might be safe routes to school, safe routes to parks, working with, for instance, the downtown on having a bike-friendly business program, creating the bike racks, with the Mary Maid symbol, and placing those around, trying to make every place walkable and bikeable, because you want people to be able to get to your business from a variety of modes of transportation. We deal a lot with the health department, and they're creating healthy communities, and previously had been coordinated with the YMCA, and on all aspects of creating a healthy community. So it might be the built environment, might be the local food group, the farmers market, transit, again, trying to focus on equity and the average citizen's experience here in town or in the community, because we can't really recruit people to come live here or bring their businesses here if it's not a good community to live in. We first have to make, when we try to recruit big business, we often have to recruit their family too, because do they really want to move here, or do employers want to move here? We could have, a big business come, but if we can't fill it with labor that's willing to either come here or live here, we just have a lot of empty positions to fill then. So that's why the overall quality of life is another important part of, the community development. We do things like placemaking, and I'll talk about that when we get to the DORA, kind of trying to make places either a destination or identifiable. We work with the neighborhoods and county park development groups, and then also kind of neighborhood by neighborhood. For instance, the city of Marion has a neighborhood cleanup. We'll be partnering with them along with the land bank and other groups that are trying to make a difference in their small geographic area. And they may be partnering with businesses or churches as well. Obviously, reducing blight is a hot topic for all of us. Having an aging community with older infrastructure, older homes, some poverty, there's plenty of blight, and kind of you go at it block by block. We work with a lot of entities that do that. Economic development. This is kind of where we get into your typical governmental acronyms. So I apologize. I will try to explain what some of those are, our ABC, alphabet soup of government. But you're often going to hear people talk about tax abatement. In Marion County, it is reserved really for industry. We're not going to do a tax abatement for a Walmart or something that's going to come and compete with your business. We want to bring in new, family supporting job, types of businesses. So that's where tax abatement typically goes in, and they're in an enterprise zone. The city has it, Marion Township, a few of the townships have it, and I think one village, perhaps like Prospect may. So we help craft those agreements between the community and, saying how much. Right now, we only have property taxes. There used to be personal property taxes in Ohio, but that's not the case. So it's not as big of a tool as it perhaps used to be in the past. Businesses don't always just locate here because of a tax abatement. That might be the icing on the cake. They have reason to come here and looking for it. Otherwise, they wouldn't waste the time even looking at it. Community Reinvestment Act, that is mainly in the city and around the airport. That's more, this banks also have a similarly named program, but that's not what this is. This is, again, more of a residential tax abatement. So if you were, building, or even people that like to remodel homes, if you're doing significant repairs to a home, you may be able to freeze that property tax, the improved value. So that way you're not penalized for making those improvements. We're getting a lot more interest lately with the county land bank having now kind of a supply of, or an inventory of vacant lots. And if we can get some maybe abandoned homes that could be salvaged, that's where somebody might be able to pick up those properties and either build new infill housing or renovate. There's a lot of other, for instance, this month there is a sheriff's sale and auditor sale on the 26th. And again, properties can be picked up very reasonably. And that way, if an investor wants to do that, again, that they're in the target area, and I'll show you what that is in a minute, it may be something to consider. We have an energy special improvement district. That's the entire city of Marion. And that means it's a funding opportunity. It's a loan program through the Toledo Port Authority. But if you're doing projects on your building that would generate a significant amount of energy savings, enough to kind of offset the cost of the initial investment, then you'll be eligible for certain loans. And the difference is that those loans don't go on your balance sheet the same way. They go and get collected on the tax with your taxes. So they get tied to the property as an assessment, more so than perhaps a liability on your business. So we've only had, I think, 2 applicants so far utilize that, but they had significant investments that they were going to make, and they were going to, again, when you're dealing with old buildings, you're going to have to do those renovations anyway, and most anything you're doing is going to bring it from 100 years old to modern time, and you may actually generate the energy efficiency that is documented through an energy audit, to see if you're eligible for the program, and then afterwards that's kind of how you fund it based upon the type of project and how long it is to kind of hit that break-even point on when you start saving enough energy to offset the investment. We work with Marion Can-Do. They are our industrial site development and recruiting arm. Since we're kind of the government side of the public side, they go out and do maybe the wining and the dining and putting things in the national site selector magazines. And once they kind of reel them in, then we can deal with them with the city or the county to help them navigate what needs to be done to locate in Marion. We also work with existing businesses on retention and expansion. Obviously, sometimes our biggest recruiters are businesses that we already have here because they're partners. They have partners in other states that they might incentive, talk about bringing here because it's more advantageous for them to be physically close to one another. Others just tend to be, kind of connected with a variety of different businesses. So give you an example, Poet, ethanol refinery, they had a connection with the people that own the My Place Hotel, and they spoke up highly of Marion. Oh, well, My Place came, so that's great. And then when Entrepreneur, which is the kind of protein producing factory based on the fly larva, this will be a $35 million investment. But what's interesting is that to feed the flies, they need like brewer's grains. And so the breweries, as well as Poet refinery, ethanol, they create waste of corn, and that's something they can then sell to the Entrepreneur to feed their flies. So we're starting to get these unusual relationships, industrial and commercial relationships, but they're all beneficial, mutually beneficial. Similarly, and again, I'll get into this in a minute, I'll have some visuals for you. Solar farms, they're interested in being around. Poet might be interested in utilizing or, buy. A lot of companies, bigger companies, like to say they are investing in green energy. They may not necessarily make it on their own site, but they might invest in it somewhere else in the country. If we get a utility scale solar farm, that means not only the Amazons of the country and Google, but even our local businesses that, when I forget the term, like a B corporation, I may have that incorrectly, but there's a terminology in which companies strive to be a certain level of green energy or and investment in that. So some of our companies like Poet, and I think Wyandotte might be one. So they are of interest to them as well, even though they may not be tapping into that electrical source, so directly. The Port Authority, as a county entity, we have not used them a whole lot. They can assist businesses in saying that whatever they're doing is a public purpose, and then that helps on some of their bank financing, etc. The Marion County Land Reutilization, that's commonly known as the land bank. We do blight reduction, so a lot of tearing down of old homes, 2 different underground storage tank cleanups of former gas stations and things. So again, trying to bring the underutilized or kind of abandoned properties back into the fold of productive and in the hands of people that are willing to do something productive with them. So our hot topics, you know, it's interesting because I'm going to scroll here to the solar farm. It all started in Pleasant Township. In fact, I might even switch my screen for a minute. It started with Pleasant Township. They had an inquiry in a predominantly residential area. I'm going to switch this and then I'm going to pick a different screen. There we go. Did that share? Did you have a picture of a solar panel?
Yes.
Okay, good. I have 3 screens, so I can never quite tell for sure if the right one went. But in Pleasant Township, what was being proposed was, and I guess I'll start with the basic. They're small. You can obviously have a solar panel on your home. It's more like an accessory use, might be in your yard. So we help Pleasant come up with some regulations, how to put that in their zoning code. The medium one, and this is kind of a map here, you kind of see it on Summerlot Hoffman Road, just west of 23. It's the Neidhart's farmlands, kind of near some residential subdivision up here. But they wanted to have what was being proposed is a solar farm, industrial scale, that is under 50 megawatts. The reason that's important, or that's kind of a threshold, is that if they're over 50 megawatts or 50 and over, they have to go to the Ohio Power Siting Board, and local jurisdictions don't really have any much say at all. They do have some public hearings and such, but it's not like you get to pick and write your own regulations. So because that was the case, and Pleasant did not have any regulations for, you know, even accessory ones, let alone this big of ones, they started writing up, you know, we spent several months writing some code. In the end, they chose to not adopt it, and they just said, we don't want them of that scale, go big or go home, and hopefully don't come at all, really. No, and that's fine. They said they had it on their the small accessory uses. They declared that they were not comfortable trying to locally regulate such, you know, industrial scale of even under 50 megawatts, and that they would let the professionals at the Ohio Power Siting Board deal if there were any inquiries, you know, bigger than that. So then we have even larger, and this is what is being proposed right now for Marion Township. It is one that's going through the Ohio Power Siting Board. And it's going to be up by Poet, kind of in the northwest quadrant of Marion Township. I'm going to switch screens again for a minute. There you go. And so it's about 970 acres, if I'm not mistaken, to be a 100 megawatt farm. And you'll see it from 423, or at least, you know, it wouldn't take up the whole space, and then I believe Poet is somewhere around here. So it's kind of surrounding Poet. I'm starting to get inquiries even into Clarendon Township. So it's becoming a hot topic. And the reason it is because as industry in general in Ohio, of course, having always had a manufacturing history, Ohio had a good electric grid system with many of the manufacturing plants gone. And, you know, we have excess capacity on our grid. Therefore, if, you know, people want to locate their solar farms near that existing power grid, and they'll sell right into the grid, and, you know, could be somebody in, you know, Pennsylvania gets this electricity, we don't know, you know, so it's basically goes into the wholesale market. People are often surprised that in Ohio there would be this interest, because obviously we are not the desert, we're not tropical, or, you know, have any, you know, abundance of sun. They can get energy even on a cloudy day, but even more so because it's so close to the grid, you could have it out west, but there's not a reliable technology to get it all the way from, let's say, Nevada out to us and not lose efficiency. So, so evidently throughout Ohio, there are a lot of projects that are vying to get access to these power grids. So what that does for us locally is it makes us have to think about each jurisdiction. Do we want it? You know, it's a big issue. Not everyone loves the idea. How do we preserve farmland? How do we make sure it's not conflicting with residential neighborhoods, et cetera? So it's a big, you know, it's a new topic for us to discuss, and each of the townships may come up with a different answer, and and it may be based upon the specifics of each location. You know, I think what Pleasant did was right for Pleasant. We'll see what happens with Marion Township. The other issue, and I'm going to switch back, I apologize, that is potentially complicates, where am I? But it makes it a more complicated, I guess, conversation is when you get to those industrial scale projects. The Ohio has a law or program. You can have qualified alternative energy tax exemption, and basically it's like a payment in lieu of taxes. So they get regulated a little differently. Communities actually get paid by the developer. Since they're not getting taxed like a regular business or industry, they will have to make mandatory service payments to the taxing district. So that would include the schools, plus a service payment to the county in this case. So it could be as high as $9,000 per megawatt per year. You know, so that is a lot of money going into the school districts and into the county coffers. So it is somewhat of an economic development decision as well as a land use decision. Also, these solar farms typically rent long-term leases on the land. So a lot of times the farmer owns the land. He'll own it for the 25, 30 years or whatever, and then later can go back to farming if they so desire. But so there's just a lot of things that go into that conversation. And again, each property is a little different. So that's kind of a hot topic. Let's see. The other hot topic on a much smaller scale, and this gets to where we're working with our businesses, are along the cultural corridor. I think you guys know what that is, and that's kind of the center and Church Street throughout downtown, maybe from the Union Station on the far west end, all the way to the new presidential library on the kind of the east end. Most of our major landmarks, you know, cultural landmarks are along that corridor, the Palace, Harding Center, etc. So there has been a desire to create, and especially maybe during COVID, I mean, they were popular before, but it made it more apparent that during COVID, with wanting to have outdoor seating and outdoor venues, basically, that maybe having the downtown allow for a whole liquor license for a small region. So here we have Prospect Street. This is kind of the core of downtown. Prospect, Main Street, State Street, between Center. And do you see my pointer when I have the pointer on? Okay.
Yes, that's been helpful. Yes.
And Church Street. Founders Park is here. You know, we have the farmers market there. The Marion Brewing Company is here. Amato's Pizza and North High Brewing will be here right next to Busby Park. This alley that kind of, you know, runs to the back to parking lot A, that's kind of being utilized or has been used most of this winter as kind of outdoor seating for some of these event venues that Luke and Alex have, the Brickyard and the Union. So the thought was, you know, we have to have an area that has at least 4 liquor licenses, and those permit holders can go together And we can, and city council then can create or petition the liquor, Ohio Liquor Control to create a district. And in essence, it's okay to walk around with a open container, provided that drink has been purchased by one of those 4 participating, taverns or breweries. They will have a special cup. They'll have a special, logo on it. It's not like bring your own beer and walk around. And you can even, if a business wants to participate, you can even walk in with your drink into their business. They also can put a sign that says no, so they will have garbage cans around, and people will know whether they can walk into the business or if they have to toss it. Also, they cannot take one drink from one tavern into another person's, because that violates their liquor license. So there's a variety of things, rules that go with it. But the goal was to start off small. We're a little bit nervous about taking it too far, just because we have a lot of railroad tracks and they have a fair number of pedestrian injuries already. We don't really want to add alcohol into that. Also, we're trying to minimize how many streets somebody might possibly cross. So what has led into some of the land development, and in addition to just the liquor aspect of it, is going to try to make what we call a road diet for Main Street. And that's changing the alignment of the parking to become diagonal parking, I believe, and on both sides of the street. And then we just have smaller lanes. It's going to slow traffic down. We want that. If we're encouraging people to kind of mull around, especially with a container and between the parks, maybe even through the alleys and stuff, we really have to have an environment which we feel that they have a safe walking paths with not high speed traffic. So we just want to try to change it to a little more pedestrian feel. And since Center and Church are both state routes, we don't feel comfortable trying to do that. Those are our main collectors. Same thing with State and Prospect. Those are all the state routes. So our only local road that we can kind of use the loop to our advantage to bypass. People don't have to go too far out of the way to avoid maybe the pedestrian congestion. That would be, create for a nice little district. So that's our, the DORA was just approved by the Commerce, or Division of Liquor Control. So that's approved, and hopefully this year we will see some utilization of it. Again, we've got people that want to do festivals downtown, in addition to just the popcorn festival, but just using the street a little more. That's all part of our complete street concept as well, is really how do we make use of public spaces for the benefit of the residents, for the benefit of the businesses, because now we're, again, as more of an identifiable business district, might as a group be a desirable destination that you might come for one thing, but then see the store, the boutique next door. So again, you try to cluster, probably nothing new to all of you entrepreneurs, but that's a common goal. Also proposing a downtown National Historic District nomination. And that goes a little beyond this area, but to the north, to the south, east, and west. That will help people if they choose to seek historic tax credits or things like that they can use on their taxes if their building is a contributing building to the district, architecturally significant enough to be part of the district. Doesn't have to be the one and only, it doesn't have to be individually listed, like the Harding or the Palace Theater or the courthouse are all individually listed. You might just be, at any of the buildings in between there. As long as you're not a brand new structure, you might be considered contributing to the overall feel of the district, and therefore you would be eligible as well to utilize those. So again, that's just another tool in the toolbox, and we have a consultant, I guess we as in downtown Marion, Inc. has a consultant that's assisting them with proposing that. And that goes all the way up to the National Park Service, because since that's an IRS thing, it has to go all the way to the top at the feds.
Evelyn, I have a
Evelyn,
question.
before we go further,
Logan, you
can
go.
I ask a question?
Mhm.
So my name is Logan Kirk. I'm with I'm a partner here at Dostal & Kirk Insurance on Center Street. Been on the council now for I guess probably for a couple of years now. Time flies when you're having fun. Love what you guys are doing, and to further develop the downtown area. I know I've got a few friends and clients of mine that are doing a lot of good work there as well. On the DORA, is that, you said it was approved? Is that approved like immediately, or is
It's
that
already, yeah, it's in effect right now.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, we just started started the process in the fall, and it just like a week or two ago was approved by the state.
Nice. That's great. That's a really cool concept. I know I've been to I think downtown Powell has one, and I know another community nearby that has one. But I know in those communities it's gone over really well, and been just making that more of a destination. And I think that'll help draw out of town folks as well as local folks. One question, and I apologize if you mentioned it and I missed it, but I feel like between Church and Center, there's really no good crosswalk in terms of pedestrians being able to maybe cross midway between the two streets. Has that been a topic that's been brought up about maybe doing a crosswalk somewhere around Barry's or the Brickyard or something to where folks don't have to go down to one intersection to get across the street?
Yes, we have started to talk about if there was a way to have like a mid-block crossing with the city engineer's office.
Cool.
So
I think
I don't know
that'd
if
be great.
that item we agree. Again, that helps to slow down the traffic. It's a convenience. It prevents, the jaywalking. Just trying to decide the right location for it. So yeah, we had even started doing some experimental things when we had our better block, and we kind of closed down the alley by the Curiosity Shop, and then you kind of walk across and get to the alley that is over by Taste of Memphis. We can't really close that down because obviously that's how they get to their parking, and then the bus station to the rear kind of comes through. But again, knowing that there is a kind of a natural desire to cross mid-block somewhere around there, how to do it safely.
Yeah, and I thought there might have even been talk between I think 124 Main where Style 124 now is, and then there's an alley in the next building. I also heard there's been talk of possibly shutting that alley down to have potential, maybe if one of those locations turns into a restaurant, to have outdoor seating. Is that just a rumor? Has that been actually talked about, or are you at liberty to say? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I've heard that. It depends on whether they want to do it formally and actually close that alley, and that's called an alley vacation, and citizens can request that. I think we just have to be careful because and this all kind of comes in, not the church, but the bank has a drive-through that exits, but I don't think it exits through the alley. It has its own curb cut.
Right.
So yeah, and I think that Topt has now a drive-through window. And so yeah, no, that more northern east-west alley would be a nice one to close down and make it pedestrian on both sides. I know that, the owners are the same on either side. So, that's up for discussion. They have not made a formal request. Those types of requests ultimately go to city planning. I happened to have city planning last night. We had two other alley vacations. One of them was over by the courthouse, between the courthouse and the annex. They wanted to vacate that alley because they have it needed for security reasons with, transferring prisoners. But so yeah, no, that's a possibility. They just need to make a request, and there's a process to it.
Cool. Yeah, just curious. But thanks for the information.
There's some good comments, Logan, about the back to the DORA and seeing it in other communities. And the chamber was one of the organizations that was in support of seeing the DORA in place, because we again see the value of having that be the opportunities there are very high compared to other communities. So We
Yep.
were happy to see that. I do have one question though on it to Evelyn. On the east side of Founders Park, for instance, would there be fencing or signage in terms of where the door ends, or what would that look like?
No, we're just gonna have electric fence and they get zapped.
That's what I
No, there
thought.
will be. We have a sign plan. And yes, we are required to have signage, so that you're aware of when you're going in and out of the district. Maybe even, I don't know if we'll get to the point where we're putting, colors on the curbs or anything like that, but there'll be signage. And so that's the part that, even though it's all approved, we have a plan for where we want those signs. We don't actually have those signs made, or, I'm hoping that the city garage where they have a sign shop that they can start.
Right. We should mention that, yeah, with the DORA, it sounds like there's much more communication to come for not only the businesses that have liquor licenses in that DORA, but businesses inside the DORA and just outside of it that will be communicated to them to let them know kind of what this will look like, and et cetera. So I'm sure that'll be coming soon.
Right. And then I think we're going to see maybe an uptick in the city also had passed the ability for people to request what they call revocable sidewalk permit. Basically utilizing the sidewalk for your business. Maybe you want outdoor seating, or you want to have your, display of goods or whatever on some temporary basis. There's a process to do that with the city zoning inspector, but I think we'll have, even outside the district, some of the other taverns that aren't maybe within, but want to be visible, because it would be nice to go from one to the other, even though they're not district. You can then know that there's something else interesting, just kind of like
Right.
the Pub and Grub had their alley with seating, and there are other places that would like to do things either on their sidewalks or on their parking lots or whatever. I hope that the more we see life on the streets or in the alleys, that's a good thing.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The other thing I guess I was going to show you that I skimmed over before, and again, this is starting to come up at council for conversation. I know Councilman Josh Daniels he has in the past, as himself, in his other life as a developer, utilized this CRA, which is the Community Reinvestment Act. Now, we do have a downtown one. It's from a different part of the state law, and that's more for the commercial buildings. Then this bigger, more 3/4 of the city is more the residential one. It has been expanded a few times before to kind of add these additional slices. Like I said, it goes for 100% for 10 years for new construction, and then 100% for 5 years for remodeling. And, they can go up to 15 years. And so that's part of the discussion. We may, since the community is, at least the city is a fairly high percent low and moderate income, it may be eligible to expand their district to maybe encourage more of, that district. Again, we have not, as a community, had a lot of development in terms of housing, even infill. We're getting some pieces here and there, but how do we, it's not enough for our citizens or to grow. Again, if you bring in big industry and you have to house 300 people at one time, we probably couldn't pull it off. And similarly, we have many older units that are not really habitable, that maybe we need more affordable, decent, safe, and sanitary housing. So on our entire spectrum of housing needs, we would like to encourage either individual or multifamily, single family or multifamily housing development in the community.
Is there currently any movement, Evelyn, and seeing this map expand into the area at the bottom?
They have started speaking about it more at committee. I don't know what the next time they're going to meet on that specific topic, because they kind of got sidetracked lately with a lot of the tax issue. But and I think that it would be interesting again to have some of the different housing groups, some of the citizen groups, at least give their opinions on what they see at the local level. A lot of our social service groups are kind of frontline housing providers, so they know the various needs, and then talk also to the realtors, and they know that market's needs. So we have, so I think it would be nice to get those to communicate with council so they can consider that in their decision making.
Thank you.
We've also been trying to, make connections with other out-of-town housing developers, to basically sell our community. Say, if you want to do housing, look at Marion. So we've been making a lot of those connections lately. We'll see if they become fruitful or not. That I think that's the last of my hot topics, unless you have any specific questions. But those are the things you may have been reading about the past few months.
Excellent. I think that was kind of answered a lot of my questions that I had. Is anyone else on the call here have any other questions for Evelyn? I think it was a really great rundown of some of the hot topics that are happening right now in the community, and a rundown on the department itself that some folks may not be fully, did not know everything that goes on over there. Hearing none.
Thank you so much for presenting.
Yes.
This was really, really helpful, very informational, gave me updates I didn't know about. So thank you for taking the time today. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Evelyn,
thanks,
thank
Evelyn.
you. Great job. And again, thank you all that were able to come here today, and those watching the recording. And we'll get all this information up there. I don't know if there's anything to share through the Word document or otherwise. We'll get that from Evelyn and share that with our EC councils as well. And with that, we will hopefully see you all next month. And we're getting closer, I think, to being in person again, obviously with the latest news that it's now opening up to all groups here at the end of this month. And we'll see where that takes us as a council and as a chamber and as a community. So stay tuned, I guess.
Sounds good.
Thank you all.
All right. We'll see you guys soon. Thanks.
All right.
Have a great day.